Hey everybody, Bob Lung here, Fantasy Football Expo. Guess what? It's time for another Expo interview. We've got one of our new exhibitors. His name is Evan Goldberg. He's got a super cool new game called Ultra GM, and it's coming next. Boom, here we are. We're back. Another edition of the exhibitor series. Nothing more I love than new people, new ideas, new things. And this one's a good one, folks. You're going to want to listen to this one. That gentleman's name is Evan Goldenberg. Evan, welcome to the show. You're going to talk about Ultra GM, which is ultra cool. And we're really excited about you coming. But just tell everybody where you're coming from, where you're at in your home here, and then we'll kind of get started.
So hey Bob, it's good talking to you again. I'm here in Miami at my home.
That doesn't
That's where
suck.
that's where I'm based. It does not suck, especially this time of year.
Yeah.
Come August, September, it kind of sucks a little bit,
Yeah.
but
I can
but
deal
this
with it.
time of year it's pretty magnificent.
Yeah.
And I've got this new fantasy football platform called Ultra GM, and the idea of it is to put the user in the role of the general manager of their favorite team. So for all of us out there that have, we love our team, but we watch that GM year after year pick the wrong guys in the draft, not sign the guys they should be signing in free agency, not making the trades they should be making, and we say, I could do that job better than they can. Ultra GM is your chance to prove it.
Yeah.
So what we do is you pick your team, whichever team is your favorite or the one you want to manage. You acquire that team's entire roster as of the start of free agency that year, and you then go about building and shaping that team in your own image. You pick the draft picks that you want to pick, you make the free agent signings you want to make, the trades you want to make. But when you're doing all of this, you've got to do it under the same restrictions and constraints that a real GM has. So this is all subject to the real NFL salary cap, real NFL salaries. So,
Mm-hmm.
it'd be
Okay.
great. Unlike some other formats where it's like you just go out and grab like all the best players you possibly can.
Right.
Here, like, look, you've got to manage the money a little bit. We all say, hey, I could do the job better than that GM does. Well, okay, you want to do that, but you got to do it, according to the same
Right.
restrictions that they've got.
Love it. Love it. And we're going to get into more details because I got lots of questions. Because as a Browns fan, you couldn't have hit a more sore spot in me than, and I'm sure there's a lot of other teams out there to feel
Oh
the
yeah.
same way. But
I mean, I think there's probably
let's take a step back,
sure,
Evan, and let's talk about your beginnings in the
sure,
fantasy football world, not Ultra GM world, just
sure.
playing the sport of fantasy football. Who got you into it? When did you start? How did things go in the beginning? Talk about that beginning phase for you.
So I think for fantasy sports, I think for me it actually started. I mean, way back as a kid, back when they with baseball and when they called it rotisserie.
Okay, I was there. Yeah,
Especially,
yeah.
you still have like RotoWire and those places that have still like sort of based, use that rotisserie terminology, or at
Mm-hmm.
least came from that. So way back when, um, and I had played baseball. I think football kind of came a little bit later,
Okay.
and it was probably around for me, around the advent of the internet, that fantasy football sort of became a new opportunity
Mm-hmm.
where rather than having to kind of keep track of your players and your team by hand
Mm-hmm.
on paper,
Right.
there were these platforms that you could do it on. They'd keep track of things. So
Right. Right.
I've been in a league that's sort of family and friends for I guess 25 to 30 years
Right.
almost.
Yeah. Right.
Um, and it's always been fun. A lot of it's that social aspect and
Yeah.
the competition among family and friends. For
Mm-hmm.
me, though, it a lot of it, at least the kind we were doing, which is your basic sort of ESPN or Yahoo
Mm-hmm.
fantasy, and it felt a little bit superficial. I was always sort of driven and mostly interested in my team. and I kind of look at the football world from the perspective of, in my case, the Dolphins.
Mm-hmm.
So I always sort of was wanting something that would allow you to sort of play fantasy, the same basic concepts, but do it from the perspective of your team and try to tap into what I think is the fantasy, which is to be the general manager of your favorite team. And
Yes.
so,
Totally
um,
agree. Totally
so
agree.
that's kind of that's kind of the genesis of Ultra GM, and it was a few years.
Yeah, no, right. So good segue.
Yep.
You beat me to it. So
Right.
talk about it. When was the first thoughts of, I mean, we all think we can run our pro teams. I'm a Browns fan, Dolphins fan.
Sure.
Browns has been much easier to be able to say I could definitely run it better. But but talk about when you started thinking like I could turn this into something. I could. When did the beginnings of the Ultra GM idea start coming to you before they became what is now the fruition of Ultra GM?
Yeah, so it was during the pandemic. I'd say it was probably
Okay.
in the latter part of 2021. And I remember I was at home. My son was home from college. We were kind of sitting at the dinner table, and I was working from it at my computer. He was studying, for because his classes were remote at that point.
Mm.
And I just remember sort of, I don't remember exactly how the idea kind of popped into my head, but I remember starting thinking about it and brainstorming it a little bit with him.
Hmm.
Um, and then, it sort of slowly, the idea was building. I started putting pieces together. But I was working at the time and had been for most of my career I'm a lawyer by background, was working at a big law firm, the kind of place where there's no like side gigs, there's no side
You don't have
hustle
time for side
opportunities.
gigs, right?
You just can't do that.
Yeah.
Um, and eventually it kind of crystallized enough, and I was so excited about it that I decided to leave that firm, kind of start my own firm where I could do both things. And so I did start, I left that firm in 2023.
Mm.
And, since then have been sort of more in earnest, essentially building this thing out.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So let's talk about Ultra GM. Now, website ultragm.com. Can folks sign up now and get started, or are we kind of waiting until? I mean, I know
So,
so free agency is kind of occurring. Is it too
right.
late to get a team, or is it, or where are we at
No,
with
no, not at all. So our official launch is going to be April 1st.
it? Okay.
The site is open, is up now, and people can go take a look at it and whatever. I wouldn't sign up yet. We've got a couple of new things coming in,
Okay.
but
Okay.
after April 1st is when that's going to be,
Okay.
our actual
I will
launch.
mark that. I'm writing that down on my calendar because I want to get this Browns team so I can turn it around.
Right. And
April
then,
1st.
free agency has started in the real world.
Right.
In Ultra GM, things will always be a little behind the
Mhm.
NFL. So, for example, for free agency, the way that will work is that when a player signs a real free agent contract, that player with his contract together become available to be bid on. So you'll
Mm.
have your sort of fake money, monopoly money, and you have got to prioritize who are the ones that you really want to get, who are the players or contracts that you're, not as interested in. And so you'll bid on the player and the real contract together, and then they'll go to the high bidder. And
So,
so all
so
of that
let me interrupt. Just ask this question. So, if we're starting April 1st, and let's say I have the Ravens, do I have DeAndre Hopkins at this point because I have the Ravens and he's already signed, or is he part of the open free agency that?
I don't remember if DeAndre Hopkins signed after the start of the league year. You won't
Oh,
have
which
him
is
yet.
what? Well, that's when free agency opens,
Right, the
right?
beginning of free agency. So I know there were some signings that were like right before or
Yeah.
right
Well,
the
they
day of.
announced them, but they can't officially do them until after the date. So.
Right, and I didn't remember if he was a someone who had been if he had been released by Kansas
I
City,
don't
or
think he was. I don't
because guys
know.
who if their contracts ended, then they couldn't have
Okay.
been signed before the start of free agency. If they were released, than they could have been. So it all just, in his
Yeah,
particular
right.
case, it depends on
Okay.
that. But the
Okay.
gist of it is, if free agency started and they hadn't signed yet, he won't be on your team yet, but you'll have the
You have
opportunity
the
to go ahead
opportunity
and
to keep
get
them. I
on
got
him.
it. Okay. All right. And yeah, just
So,
questions already going through my head.
yeah, no, definitely.
Gotcha. So now you become the manager of your team. So let's say I'll be the Browns. So I'm going to
Right.
take over the Browns. Obviously, I have a salary cap issue because I got this idiot quarterback sitting on my bench that's making millions and billions of dollars that is worthless to me.
Yep.
So um, is it so am I playing for fantasy points? Is it deep stuff? Like there used to be a site called, I think it was Dynasty Owner. And you literally like had a stadium and you had, you were tracking revenues of your food and beverage. It was pretty deep. I
No,
didn't play it, but it was pretty deep. Is it go that deep, or is it more just focused on like the players and fantasy aspects?
it's just the players and the fantasy
Okay,
aspect, but
that's
it is
good.
deeper
That other
than,
stuff was too much.
yeah, it's deeper than the normal, because it's full roster scoring. So we have scoring for offensive linemen. We have, there's even punters have scoring because
Oh, okay. All
they're
right.
part of your roster. I
Yeah,
mean, they
that's
don't
fun.
score a lot.
Right.
The difference between the best punter and the worst punter is not a whole lot,
Yeah, right.
but they're in there, and so it is I think a more sophisticated form of scoring, and certainly the salary cap management aspects are a little more sophisticated than the typical. But we don't
Mhm.
get into anything like food and beverage or
Okay,
seat
that's
life.
good. Because I've seen that, and it's just like, that's a
Yeah,
little too much for me. I'm not
yeah.
sure I want to deal with that. But so once you said you take over teams, so they're obviously this is not your typical 12 team fantasy league. This is a 32 team league.
It
Um,
is.
you're playing against everybody else who has one of their respective teams in the league. So can you start if you only like have 16 teams, or do you have to wait till everybody fills one in, or does the computer run them, or how does that work?
So you're actually playing. There's two separate leagues. So
Mm,
you have your one team. You're playing simultaneously in two leagues. All
okay.
that means is that you get your score for the week based upon your player's performance.
Okay.
Your score is going to be compared to one team in a 32 team league, where your schedule, whoever the Browns are playing that week, is who
So they
you're playing
were
your
following the real
counterpart.
schedule.
You're playing the real schedule. You're
Okay.
playing that counterpart. That's 32 teams.
Okay.
The
Gotcha.
other league is a 14 team league that you'll be playing against just other Browns owners.
Oh, okay.
So in that league, um, you are basically, all of your friends, family who are Browns owners, you can do a private league or a public
Hmm,
league and play
okay.
against them and see, okay, we're all starting with this same Browns lineup. And,
Right.
let's be honest,
Right.
like
And
it's
now it's
probably
who can make it into a better team. Right. I got
right,
it.
who can make it into the better team. So, in the Browns case, right, we can probably be honest and say the likelihood that the Browns are going to win the Super Bowl, or that your Browns team is going to win your 32 team league,
Yeah.
probably isn't
Probably
that
not.
great in year one, but you'll still have the chance to win your Browns league. So no
Oh,
matter how much of a struggle the season is for the
right.
Browns, even
You,
if they're out of the playoffs by week 7, and look, there's the Dolphins, we've had that happen to us
sure.
plenty of times too. But you still have something to play for because you're still competing against the other owners of the same
I
team.
got you. I got you.
So, so the start where things get kind of kicked off is we do need a league to fill.
Okay.
There are certain dates they'll stay open until they fill, or until we close them. And we do have the ability, and sometimes we will, if we need to, we can close a team that's not filled with a full 32 teams,
Mm,
and the teams that aren't owned by actual users will be CPU managed teams. They'll be the real team. So if,
okay.
for example,
Okay.
nobody buys the Colts in a particular league, the
Hmm.
Colts will be the Colts, and each
Okay.
week they'll score just the same according to all the players on the Colts. And so when you play against the Colts, you'll be playing against the real Colts roster. Much
Gotcha.
like in the 14 team league, one of those teams is going to be the actual Browns. So
Mm,
when I say, you're sort of saying you can do the job better than the real GM, you
Hmm.
will actually be able to essentially compete with
I
the
like
real
that.
GM
Yeah.
because you're going to play the real Browns roster. So
Okay.
that will always be kind of a barometer to see, like, hey, how well am I doing? If you're
Right. Right.
outperforming the pros, you can at least feel pretty decent about how you're doing. If you're getting crushed, then you know,
Yeah, boy, if you can't do better than Andrew Barry and the Browns, you're in trouble. But anyway,
yeah,
I digress. So, of course, I'm sure there's a lot of people love this idea. Of course, one thing that's in their mind is how much does it cost and what can I win? Those are
right.
always two very important things. So, talk about that.
Sure. So in the beginning, it's a pay to play, so subscription based year to year.
Okay.
Um, it's in the beginning for year one, maybe year two. We'll see how it goes. It will
Hmm.
just be for fun, so there won't be any prizes.
Okay.
Groups of people can get together and create their own pools and all of that,
Hmm.
but we're not going to administer any prizes within the product.
Okay.
The costs are going to be variable according to some extent supply and demand. So the
Hmm.
average price to start is going to be about $60 for the
Okay.
year,
That's not bad.
um, and some teams will be, because there's different levels of popularity, and we want to get about as even a
Right.
pool of
Right.
teams that we can. A team like the Cowboys that has a bigger following will probably be priced more. A
Right. And
team
the
like the
Browns will be
Browns,
$3.
you might get the Browns might be a good discount for you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
All right. Cool. No,
so
I like it. Yeah, and I think that's a great idea. Obviously, everybody's like, "Well, I want the Chiefs or I want the Eagles because I can win," And if there's money involved to win, that obviously makes a big
right,
difference. I kind of like
but I
the
think
value part. Yeah.
yeah, but I also think, I mean, to me, I've always felt like the team specific league, that 14 team league, is
Hmm.
kind of the most intriguing part. Like, sure,
Right.
I'll want to win in my 32 team league too,
Right.
but the barometer I'm looking at is how do I get my Dolphins team to be as good as possible, and can I
Hmm.
do better than my friends, my brothers,
Hmm.
the guys at work,
Right. Right.
all of them. That's probably the competition that I'm more interested in
Sure.
than the 32 team league. But of course, you want to win them all.
Yeah. No, we all want to win everything. I mean, that's why we're here.
Yeah,
That's why I started playing fantasies because I wanted to be better at running my own team, and
right,
obviously that's how it all started too.
right,
So this year's kind of like a initial may not be any charges or maybe minimal charges, no real money to win, but obviously this is a future thing. This is like
right,
playing in a dynasty league.
right,
You take the Browns, it's going to be a process. It's going to take a
right,
few years
right,
to get through. I assume that we'll be able to do our own drafting our own players. So if I have the Browns and I have the second pick, I can
right,
decide whether I want to take
right.
Sanders or yeah, what's his name,
Exactly.
Travis Hunter or whoever I want to take.
You'll
So,
pick exactly, in the same place. So our drafts will happen after the real draft. You'll have the same draft picks that the Browns had,
okay.
and you can choose. You don't take the same players, but you'll be in the same
Oh right.
spot.
Oh okay. I see.
So
Yeah. Right. So
at
that's I said.
number
I'll have the
two,
if I had the
you'll
Browns.
have pretty much the pick of the litter, except one guy will
Right.
be gone.
Yeah. Right.
For other teams, obviously, if you're picking later, the guy that your team might have picked at 23 may
Hmm.
not be there anymore. Anyhow, it may not even be an option to take the same guy because he might have gone at 12 in our Ultra
Right.
GM draft.
But it's an
So
interesting strategy because it's after the draft. So in the
right.
future, will you do it before the draft?
No, I think we're always going to do it after the draft,
Okay.
but and it's the only thing that I think is different. The fact that the draft, just because a player went number 6 in the real world, doesn't mean he's going to go 6 in your
Right.
draft. So
Right.
players are going to pick people different. I guess there is the possibility that if a player gets drafted and then gets injured in like rookie mini camp or something, depending upon, we'll have a couple of different drafts over the
Yeah.
season. There's a possibility that something like that should change things, but for the most part, that should be a pretty rare event.
Yeah.
And for the most part, if you're drafting in May, it should be pretty much the same picture and the
Right.
same
Yeah.
players that you're
Right.
interested in as are
Mhm.
getting drafted in April.
Sure, sure. No, I love it. No, I think this is great stuff. What else about Ultra GM that we didn't bring up, we didn't talk about that you'd like to add?
I mean, I think it's like I said, there's the competition in the 14 team league,
Hmm.
competing against each other. Like a lot of other fantasy leagues, you'll have the ability to, kind of create your own logo, create your own team name. The conventions we use for that are that you'll keep the city name. So what your
Okay.
team will be the Cleveland somethings, and
Clowns.
then you'll add whatever that Cleveland what?
Clowns.
Clowns, right. So you'll be the Cleveland Clowns, and you can create a Cleveland Clowns logo.
I love it. Yeah, so
Um,
we should do that.
and we plan, hopefully, I think it'll be in place for this year. One of the things that is planned for, but not up on the site yet, is basically a shop where you can essentially buy your own custom branded fantasy team stuff. So you could buy shirts or hats with a Cleveland Clowns
Oh, okay.
logo,
No, I like that. Yeah,
with your own design and all of that.
very
We're gonna,
cool.
of course, put our Ultra GM logo and
Oh,
name on
wow.
it as
Sure.
well,
Sure.
on
Yeah,
the
right, right.
sleeve or whatever. But I think that should be sort of a fun little thing to be able to have your own kind of fantasy team
Gotcha.
branded stuff.
So for all of the expo freaks that are out there that
Mhm.
have been there every year, and I can see them just eating this up, what do they need to do now to make sure that they are a notified that you're ready to roll and they can pick their team and now I would love to say that we could create our own Expo 32 team league. We
Right.
probably could if I really
Right.
pushed.
Yeah.
But just to fill the first one for you, what should they do right now after watching this? Go to Ultra GM. Can they put in a thing that says, "Hey, I want to know about this"? What's their
So
best
so
scenario for right
they could go in now and they can create an account now. They
now? Okay,
shouldn't try to buy a team yet
okay.
until after April
So where it
1st.
says "join for free," that's what they should
Right.
do. Okay,
Right. They can join and sort of just have an account.
an account. Okay.
But would probably be best is if I'll let you know when we're live on April 1st, and if you have a mailing list or can
I
maybe
do.
mention on a future
Just let
show that
everybody know.
that things
Yeah,
are open
yeah.
there, that'd be great.
Very cool. Yeah, no, I think everybody will really get into this. It sounds like fun. So this is your first expo. You've heard
Yep.
about it. You've heard about it at FSGA. I know. So what are your thoughts? How did you decide to come into this? Go to the expo? Who talked you into it? Who gave you the heads up about it? Talk about how you heard about the expo for this year.
So I met, I guess, in Boston, I think,
Mm.
with Nathan,
Mm.
right?
That's
And
right. I forgot about that.
and,
You're right.
he had mentioned it,
Hmm.
and it seemed like a great way to sort of meet and connect with real players,
Hmm.
um, more so than other fantasy businesses. I mean,
Yeah.
we'll meet with the other fantasy businesses too, but
Sure.
I think this is one that's more open to the actual players. Um, and look, I mean, I think a big part of it to me is that communal and social aspect of it. I think that's particularly true with Ultra GM because
Hmm.
of you know we all were if you live in the Cleveland area, undoubtedly you probably have dozens of friends who are and
Hmm.
acquaintances that are Browns fans. So
Sure.
the ability to sort of pull together what and connect the fantasy football experience with the fan
The
experience
real team. Yeah.
and
No,
sort
I
of
love it.
be competing against the family and friends at the same time. When the Browns are
Hmm.
playing the Steelers, you'll be playing your Steelers counterpart in the
Right.
32 team league. And so,
Yeah.
even those sorts of rivalries among friends, when you have those friends, it just, adds a little bit of extra juice. So, the hope is that, people will sign up and they'll love it. And they'll also want to also kind of pull together and bring in friends that they can compete with.
Gotcha.
So.
Gotcha. No. Yeah. No. I love it. Any questions for me as a first timer coming to the expo? You've been thinking about just kind of didn't think about asking, but I like to do that with the new folks because there's going to be more new folks. So they're going to be asking questions. There's a lot of new folks out there that'll be watching this and,
Right.
go, oh, that's a good question. Thank you for asking.
So,
Now I know.
I mean, it's probably not the best question, but it happens to be one that pops to my head. Is, in terms of maybe bringing some free swag or merch to pass out. What have been sort of the kind of things that are most successful or in that regard? What are the things people like to?
I've seen it all. I would say the favorites are always t-shirts.
Hmm.
For sure. I have an entire wardrobe I could wear for 2 weeks on just t-shirts that I get at the expo or FSGA or Scott
Right,
Fishbowl. Cool t-shirts are always a favorite. Those are expensive, so I get that if you don't. I always say anything usable, and people are
right,
like, well, "What do you mean?" Well, here's the thing: we all have 10,000 koozies stuffed in a drawer.
right,
As much as we all love koozies and we'll use them, when you get like 50 of them, it's too much.
right,
So
right,
I always tell people don't do koozies because
right.
they won't get picked up because everybody has a koozie.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've done weird things with just like giveaways with the Expo logo on it. I've done magnetic, beer bottle openers with
Right.
the logo on it. One year I did jar openers, those kind of
Okay.
rubbery gripper
Right.
things with a logo on it. The wives all were very excited about that,
Right.
and the husbands. And so it's stuff like that. Anything that's usable, and
Right.
it doesn't have to be expensive,
No.
but just something that people will go, "Oh, I'm going to keep that." I
Right.
mean, there's been water bottles and stuff like that, but again, very expensive, very tough to have to ship all that stuff to us. Um, but yeah, but
Okay.
anything that's free, people love, right? They're just, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just going to take it. I don't need
Right.
another koozie, but I'm going to take it anyway because I might.
Right.
And there's a lot of drinking that goes on during the weekend, so they usually
Right.
use them. But yeah, so anything,
Okay.
and of course, we will have swag bags for everybody, and you will be allowed to, give us 1,000 items to put in the swag bags that everybody's going to get. I always tell people to kind of do, the business cards or note cards with some kind of special deal, like, get 1 month free or get
Right.
whatever. But you can always do giveaways in that. We've had,
Sure.
people with little rubber, little softy squeezable footballs and stuff. So
Right.
any of that stuff's always a big hit. So yeah,
Okay.
pretty open.
Sounds good.
All
Sounds
right.
good.
Well, before we go, again, tell everybody where to go, how to get signed up, how to get ready for the grand opening of Ultra GM.
Okay. So Ultra GM, it's www.ultragm.com. The site is up now, but don't go on and subscribe yet. You can create an account if you want to, but don't buy the team. Our official launch is going to be April 1st.
Okay.
So after April 1st, just around the corner, you'll be able to come on and grab your team. And then, as leagues fill, they'll open to gameplay. So, we're not going to, you can't start free agency and all that stuff
Really?
until everyone's in. You can't have some people that get a head start, but as leagues fill, and they're going to fill in order. So if you're the Browns, you'll come into the first league. If you join a public league, not a private league, but if you do a
Mhm.
public league, you'll come into the first league that has an available space for the Browns. And then when that league fills with all the teams, the next league will start up. And once you're full is when it then opens up for gameplay, for cutting players, trading players, signing players. Your draft will then be scheduled and the like.
Gotcha. So you're saying we could create a private expo league? Is that what you're saying
We
to me?
can create a private expo league,
All right, folks,
and
you hear him.
if it turns out that we don't, for some reason, we're missing that Jaguars fan or the
Oh,
Cardinals fan or whoever
there's
the
got to be one of everybody, right? I
right,
mean, we got
whoever's missing.
800 people to come to this. There's got to be one. Like I already
Right.
know who the Chiefs fans are. Obviously, Browns, Steelers fans. I know. Gosh, who else? Commanders, Cowboys. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we got and if you tell me we'll send out an email. Go, all right, guys, we have 4 teams left. These are it. When they're gone, you're not in the league.
We may have the ability
to push this. We can do this.
We could do that, but we could also create, and I'll circle back with you on it because I don't want to take up too much of your time with it now. But we could also create some of the private team specific leagues. So if there's enough demand for a full Browns league or a full Cowboys league or a full Eagles league or whatever, we could have an Expo private Eagles league or whatever.
Well, definitely want to try to get an Expo 32 team league so that we can have everybody, represented. We can do it, start getting it together, talk more about it at the actual Expo, what trades we've made, where we're going with our teams, that kind of stuff. So I love the concept. So we'll definitely have to look into that. So, Evan, if you don't have anything else, though, once again, thank you for being a part of this. We're so excited to have you bring Ultra GM to Canton, Ohio, but also bringing Ultra GM to the world, because I think this is a super fun, super cool idea. And I'm really excited that you're going to be there to promote it to our rabid fans that will be there and excited about it. So again, Evan, thank you so much. Appreciate you being here. Folks, I'm, of course, Bob Lung, Fantasy Football Expo. That's Evan Goldberg. He does Ultra GM. Everybody take care. God bless. We'll see you soon.
Have a good one.
Thank you for watching. Be part of the excitement. Grab your 2025 Expo tickets now at thefantasyfootballexpo.com. And if you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, subscribe, and tap the bell for more updates.